ladies and gentlemen, as you know, not too long ago we lost a dear friend of ours, Tony Schoff, Tony D'Amato Sr., who was a manager in predominantly BWO, LWO, and EGW in Pennsylvania, along with a couple other promotions here and there. One of the best heels I've ever worked with as a manager. You know, one of the best people I knew in wrestling, and you know, not that there's a lot of good people in wrestling, but Tony was one of the few. And you know, I just want to go around here and just share some of the good times. You know, remember him as he was, and you know, just embrace all the good times that we had with him. And as a fan, you know, as a wrestler that worked opposite him, I never got to be managed by him, unfortunately. That would have been awesome. You know, Billster, who got to know him via Facebook and on a couple of indie shows he came to while he was here last time. So, how do we want to start out? Jake, I know, you know, you don't really have any personal stories about Tony, but I know you have come to shows as a fan, BWO, LWO, Pro Wrestling Magic, and so on. So what are your thoughts on Tony Schoff as a performer?
Yeah, you know, thank you, Steve. You know, it's really funny because, you know, when I was really young, I went to a lot of BWO shows.
I remember.
You know, and I can remember a lot of the guys that wrestled, like you, Magic, Rich Rodden, you know, a bunch of guys that wrestled. But if there's anyone that I remembered the most, you know, that's how you, we hang out a lot. It was totally Tony. I can tell you what right now, I may not remember every single guy that he managed, but I remember him managing. He was so entertaining. I tell you what, I hated the guy, but you know what? Knowing what I know now about wrestling, that means he was doing an amazing job.
Yeah, he always did.
And you know that he knew how to rile up the crowd, and you know, even from my first show, I just knew that guy was someone that I'm supposed to be booing. He made that very clear.
Yeah.
You know, he always did such a good job. He seemed like such a professional from everything that I've heard from everybody. He seems like he was the nicest guy, a family man, all that.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
it's definitely as a fan, he from in front of the curtain and behind it, sounds like he was the consummate professional.
Always gave you your money's worth, right?
Oh yeah.
Now I'm telling you, if Tony came along 20 years earlier, a lot of those managers in the 80s, all due respect, probably wouldn't have had a job, because he would have taken every single one of their jobs, no matter how good they are, and told them, "Hey, your cunt stinks real fucking bad." Ha 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 ha. I don't do the laugh that good, but you know, that's the idea of it.
Leave it to the professional.
Yeah, I do. So Billster, I know you're limited interactions with Tony, you know, but I know you guys got to know each other a little bit after the fact on Facebook. So, you know, what are your thoughts, performer as a man? Any specific stories, exchanges?
Yeah, I was introduced to Tony. It was about 2010. It was yourself, Bob, that introduced me to him on Facebook, and yourselves and the guys at the BWO. You did this beautiful video for the late Bud Shackelford and myself. Bud had lung cancer, and I had cancer of the inner ear at the time. It was quite a stressful time, and that was my first interaction with Tony, and we became Facebook friends. And, you know, you don't want to bother the guy, you know, because he's a stranger, and then all of a sudden you get this private message from this stranger. "Billster, how are you? How's the ear? How's the chemotherapy going? You know, what's going on? Tell me." And you know, I had some good lengthy Facebook conversations with Tony, and then I had the pleasure of meeting him 4 years ago. And you know, he was such a great, lovely guy. Absolutely ripped me terrible the night of the show, but you know, that was Tony, and it was great, and I loved every second of it. But the thing was, it's hard for me, because when I got on that plane in Glasgow on Thursday to come and see you guys, I was hoping that maybe somewhere, somehow, would have bumped into Tony. Didn't really know what the full extent of what was going on, but to be here and to hear the news that he's gone is, you know, I was a little bit heartbroken this morning. I'll admit to it, because I will say this: to me, he was Tony Schoff. That's it, beginning and end. He was Tony Schoff. Tony D'Amato just came in very recently for me, you know, as his name. He was always Tony Schoff to me. But I will say this, in all honesty, my dealings with Tony, no matter how small they were, he was nothing but entirely generous as a human being, very loving, very caring. And when I went through that horrible, horrible time, anytime Billster, you know where I am. That was the message I got. And, you know, Godspeed, Tony. Bless you.
Man, it just, wow. Like you said, that Tony D'Amato, you just recently got to know, just because Tony Schoff was so over the top, and they were two completely different people. But Tony Schoff, I think, was what Tony D'Amato really wanted to say and wanted to do, and, you know, what he wanted to say to people that made him angry, and he just turned the volume way up, and it was gold every time. And like I said, two completely different people, even though maybe the volume turned way up. You know, Tony Schoff was just so, that's the only way I could describe it. And Tony D'Amato, just such a good family man. Every time at the school, I don't know how many you guys know this, I trained his son. He only wound up having, I think, 2 or 3 matches, and then he became a referee. But he would always tell me, "Oh, how's my son doing? How's he progressing?" And you know, I would always tell him, I'd be honest with him. I said, you know, he's learning. He's got a ways to go, and he always would take interest in how long till the goal, how his son was doing, and then, you know, not complaining. This is a great thing, but once he had grandkids, it just went out the window. It was all about family all the time, and that's a good thing. That just shows, you know, what kind of man Tony D'Amato was. And Joe, I know you were very, very close with Mr. D'Amato / Mr. Schoff. So, anything you want to share, whether it be personal, professional, a little bit of both?
Well, I mean, you know, if anybody knows who I am, I'm quite possibly the worst enemy of Tony Schoff as a ref.
Yeah.
Not as a family friend or anything, but as a ref. And Tony Schoff, no matter where we were, and at any company, any place, he would always tell me that you suck as a ref. And
He wasn't wrong.
I don't know if I want to believe it or not, but I know that he was purposely telling me that to get me to be better, which I've progressed rapidly because of that. But I'll always remember when we would have, I forgot what, it might have been 2 years ago, and you were probably in the match when he was managing the opponent at the time, and any chance Tony got his, you know, whoever it was that he was managing to distract me, you know, he would just wail the shit out of you.
Not me, he took care of. It was everybody else.
And I will be honest that, you know, I knew most of the time that, well, especially whenever it was Steve, I was like, no, keep talking to me. Let's see how far Tony can take this. And I know that, you know, the big guy over there, Mr. Bob, has a really good story, so I'm not going to spoil what I really want to say right now, but I'm sure he'll tell it. But
The Elmwood Park bathroom.
well, there's that,
There's a couple
and
of
then
stories.
there's.
Yeah.
I remember a time that I was refereeing. I believe it was Richie and Weck in a hardcore match, and I remember watching the footage of the show afterwards, coming home, and Schoff and Bob got into it, and you're watching the footage, and you see security take Bob away, and then the camera pans over, and here comes Tony Schoff with a fucking giant table over his head, ready to fucking throw it at Bob. And I don't know how many people it took to take that off of him, take that away from him,
like
because
3 or
he
4.
just snapped.
However many security we had, that's what it took.
Yeah, and when I broke my leg in 2014, you know, when I was in rehab, Tony Schoff called me, and you know, we had a good conversation. And of course, as anybody knows, any conversation with Schoff is a good conversation, if not a great one. But hearing of his death is quite possibly the most shocking thing in the past 5 years to hear about. And you know, family man, friend, manager, whatever, Schoff will never be replaced, and it's just tough to have to deal with and process the fact that he's gone. And going to a wrestling show and you're not going to hear that laugh, you're not going to hear YCSRB that many of us know, but not many of you guys out there know. So
No, I told him.
oh, you did tell them. I'm sorry,
You gotta bleep that though.
That's, yeah, I'm gonna.
Jake was.
That's part of his legacy. That's what made all of us laugh every single show. So that should be
yeah.
out
And if
there.
it wasn't that,
The Schoff.
it was the Schoff.
Da-na-na-na-na-na, you're gonna
Someone's
get
getting
the
shot.
Schoff. That was awesome.
But Tony will be missed.
Yeah, absolutely. As the DiMaggio's House of Douche would say, often imitated, never equaled. Tony would know what that's all about. I believe he was with us on that trip. We went to this Italian place in Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. So
Oh
that
my God.
should tell you right there. They had cannolis that were pretzels with vanilla ice cream in them. The tomato sauce was ketchup with pepper, and I believe Tony was there, and we were all disgusted by it, and that's where that little quote comes from. But even if he wasn't there, I'm sure he would have appreciated it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure he was.
And if he didn't say YCSRB,
It did.
point, go like this.
Yep.
And then when you acknowledged him, he would go, bad.
I know you had a lot of. You guys worked the program together. You and
Yeah.
Richie Rotten versus him and James Weck.
Yep. It goes back with Tony. When wrestling started, we were kind of on the outside looking in. Neither one of us were a pro wrestler. BWO approached me because at the time of my look, I was in great shape at the time, and they basically wanted me to become Steve Off's manager, bodyguard, aka Hands Off, Barbarian, and Tony Schoff as the obnoxious guy that was going to just piss everybody off and basically put him in a feud between me as the managers. And me and Tony hit it off chemistry-wise. Backstage, he was a gentleman. We talked about family, we talked about everything, and then he just said to me, when we go through that curtain, our friendship is over, anything goes. And I'm telling you what, anything went, because I got hit with chairs, I got hit in the nuts with a cane.
Yeah, he always seemed to get the upper hand on you.
Yeah, and every time I turned around, Tony Schoff was just abusing the hell out of me. And after every show, he would just say, I'm sorry, but that's what I do. And you know what, I respect Tony for that. Tony's ultimate goal, and unfortunately we never were able to do that because, I was a good guy, I was a bad guy, I was a good guy, I was a bad guy. He wanted us to unite as bad guy managers and just become the ultimate terror team. And we both wished for that to happen. It never did, but I remember at Garfield, I believe it was the Garfield War Game show, and he did something to me that I didn't expect, and he kind of pissed me off. So then I did something to him to piss him off, and like they said before, next thing you know, this madman's chasing me with a table. And I was twice the size of Tony, and I was scared, and I was running. And it took all the security to stop him from getting to me. But Tony was the ultimate entertainer. He had that way of just turning that crowd against him. And a lot of shows backstage, we'd be watching, and he'd say, the crowd is dead. We got to get them into it. And Tony had a way of getting that crowd so pissed off or into it that they were into it. Unfortunately, I always bore the brunt of Tony's abuse.
Including the diaper.
The diaper in the face. There was a show where basically Tony rubbed the diaper with human feces in my face at a show. And you know what? I was amazed that he did it. I can't believe he did it, but he did it. And afterwards, he gave me some wipes and said, here, clean the shit off your face and get on with it. And that's the way Tony was. But before the show, after the show, he was very respectful, always asked how the family was going. We had a lot of good talks about life in general. But the minute you went through that curtain, he was Tony Schoff. And, Tony Schoff will never be replaced. Tony Schoff will live on as a legend in BWO, LWO. And like Steve had said earlier, if he was around maybe 10 years earlier, he would have been probably in the WWE as one of the best managers ever. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, timing is everything in the pro wrestling business, and it just wasn't Tony's time. But, it's memories we take on forever, and God bless you, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. The greatest heel manager, all due respect to present company and anybody watching, I've ever worked with. I know there are greats like Bobby Heenan and all that, but personally, the greatest I've ever worked with is Tony Schoff. And, one of my only regrets so far in my wrestling career, I posted this on Facebook earlier, is never being part of Schoff International, the most underrated faction in BWO, LWO history. Because, man, the heat those guys got was fucking real. And Tony was just that heat magnet. He had so many good wrestlers in his group that were just, they weren't there yet, they weren't getting over, and he was just like, come on, let's go. He brought them all up to his level. They did the wrestling, He did all the heel stuff. He got them over. He got them heat. We thought there were going to be riots a couple times. I was kind of hoping
that
for
when
one or
Schoff was
two.
in the building, there would hopefully be a riot.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for one or two because I knew Tony could take at least half of them, and then I'd have to jump in and get the other half.
He can
of
hold
you.
his own, you know.
He definitely could have.
Only one way, and that's the Schoff way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna see if we can find some video clips to insert throughout this. I don't know how much I still have from the old VWO days. If not, I think this stands alone as pretty damn good. If we can find enough video clips and photos, you can add those in. And if you've seen them throughout, then we added them throughout, and please disregard this part of the video. But bottom line, Tony Schoff, Tony D'Amato, fucking awesome character, great man outside of the business, a family man, survived by his kids, his grandkids, his wife, his whole family. You know, I got a feel for them. I can't even imagine, like, we're all upset. I can't imagine what they're going through right now. So, you know, deepest condolences to all of his family, friends, and fans out there. You know, the ones that didn't want to fight him.
Yeah.
There were some that
Everybody.
liked him.
I wanted to as a little kid.
And he had a saying, Bob, I'm going to Pennsylvania. You don't want to be on the show? I'm like, nope. He goes, I gotta go deal with those pencil neck geeks that are inbred in Pennsylvania. You gotta come out there. And I'm like, no, I ain't going near Pennsylvania. You know, Tony had a way of expressing himself about people in general, and that was Tony's way.
It always ended with your cut stinks.
Bad.
With that laugh.
You got any other stories? Any specifics? Those are the main ones that come to mind. Obviously, there's a million of them, but those are the main ones that I was thinking of earlier. If anyone's got anything else, now's the time.
I can't.
No,
think of
I think.
anything.
And our fire.
I do remember going to Pennsylvania, I think it was, and
Yeah.
I was driving in the truck with Schoff,
Uh,
and I believe you were driving with Richie and two other people, and all Schoff kept doing was pointing at people out the window when we were at the traffic lights. And the whole ride up to PA, yelling out the window, railing on the horn behind them, and I just couldn't stop laughing. It was the greatest car riding ever.
And there's times Tony would come through the curtain in the back, and he'd go, hey, Bob, first row, right side, ugliest people I've ever seen. Go hit on them. You pissed them off because I just did. So Tony was always usually ahead of me, and he would just tell me who he pissed off. He said, you know, especially when I was a bad guy, he was a bad guy. You know, go out there and finish it. And you know,
He would always ask.
I would go out and finish it.
He would always come back and he would always ask, "How was that?" Tony, you don't have to
You
ask
heard
that
them.
question. You're quite possibly the greatest thing that could have happened to those fans. Forget the matches. Forget somebody winning this belt or somebody winning those belts. People are coming to sometimes, most of the time, coming to see you just because of how great you are as a manager.
they wanted to see whoever he was with get their ass
Get
kicked.
their asses kicked. But
Because
at the
of
same time,
Tony's
they
heat.
knew they were getting the show.
Yep.
Wasn't he managing James Weck at one time?
Yeah.
And everybody hated James Weck. And because of Tony Schoff, James Weck took some beatings.
All you people, come down to the BWO in 2 weeks. That'll be the next time you see Mr. Schoff and I, when we give Mr. Schoff a brand new birthday cane. I'm out.
Some of the worst beatings I've ever seen in
Right,
the ring.
backdropped him into the
You know,
wall.
because of Tony Schoff just pissing the world off.
And as great as he was on the mic when he got to talk, or even when he wasn't on the mic, it just sucked when we got to had to go to some places where it was family friendly.
Ooh.
So you didn't really get the full-on experience of Schoff.
Yeah,
but
man.
trust me, if you people can find the video that's out there of Schoff on the mic, the real Schoff, you're in for a great fucking time.
That's probably all been pulled from YouTube. PG Schoff was okay, but Schoff Unchained was just the greatest thing ever. And he was so humble too behind the scenes, but
Everybody-
out there just Schoff noxious, as he would say, to the max. It was great.
And when he hit you with the cane, he hit you with the cane. And
It was
you
coming.
better have fucking taken it. Because if you bitched about it, he'll fucking do it again.
And then, one show where we basically beat the crap out of each other on the side, get to the back. He'll go, we were probably the oldest guys in BWO, LWO. And he looked at me, goes, "Why are we doing this? We're too old for this shit." And I said, "Good reason, Tony. I don't understand why we're doing this." And he said, "Ha ha ha, 'cause we love it."
It's not enough. It's tough. But that's all I can think of. And if you, any of you fans, once this video is up, if you guys have any memories of Schoff,
Yeah, leave it in
by
the
all
comments.
means,
Leave it
in
on
the
his
comments.
Facebook. Tag him in it. His page is still active. I'm
You
sure
can
his
go to
family
all-
will love to see all your great memories of him as a fan or a friend. Or
You can go to all our Facebooks. You can go to the Rep page, the Steve Off page. You can even go to the Gun Show page if you people know what that is.
and I'll do that.
The
That's
PWO pages, Pro Wrestling Magic, all of them. Just leave your favorite memory of Schoff. Good, I know,
Yeah.
we'll have, I know everybody has
leave his
something.
legacy everywhere. That's what he deserves. It's quite a legacy.
And it's hard to
It's-
process now because of it just happening. So we're all still in the state of shock.
Yeah.
But once a couple days pass, Facebook's just gonna blow up with Tony Schoff memories of all of us.
Yeah.
If it hasn't already yet.
Yeah, once we get over that initial shock, I'm sure stuff will start coming back to us and add more and more and more. But I mean, for now, that's pretty much it. I think. We've lost people in the business before. Never anyone we were that close to.
Yeah.
So it's just a whole different animal right now, and it's not a good one. But the memories are all good. So Tony D'Amato, aka Tony Schoff, Godspeed, rest in peace. Condolences to your friends, family, and fans, like I said before. And you may be gone, but fire still burns for you and all of us.